of living has worsened in the last 12 months. We have details from the researchers here on Hot Edition. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us here on 3FM 92.7. In some 45 minutes, the business team will join us with the very latest from the world of business, and then they'll be followed by sports and entertainment. This is an interactive show. Go on to Facebook where we're streaming live. Handle 3FM 927. That live stream, you can leave a message for us as we interact with the various stories that we'll be bringing to you. On Twitter, now known as X, find us 3FM 927, same handle as well, and leave a message there for us using the hashtag Hot Edition. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta, and we get into our very first story where government and the International Monetary Fund have reached a staff level agreement on the first review of a $3 billion extended credit facility program. The development paves the way for a disbursement of some $600 million once it is approved by the IMF's executive board. Ghana and its official creditors now need to agree a debt restructuring plan to get board approval for the disbursement to begin. A team from the fund has in the last 2 weeks been assessing government's use of the first tranche of the funds ahead of possible disbursement in November. Mission Chief of the IMF, Stefan Rude, has been speaking about the level of progress thus far.
Once our executive board review is completed, Ghana would have access to another $600 million, bringing the total IMF financial support disbursed under the arrangement since May, when the program was approved, to about $1.2 billion. Before you hear from the Honorable Minister, the Governor, and we take your questions, allow me to provide a brief overview of our assessment at the current juncture. First, our assessment is that performance under the program has been very strong and consistent with the authorities' commitments. Specifically, the authorities have adjusted the course of policy making to confront very difficult economic and financial conditions and to ensure a brighter future for all Ghanaians. On the fiscal front, more specifically, the government has adjusted the policy stance to bring about a reduction in deficits and restore the sustainability of public finances. This started with a bold 2023 budget that sought to increase revenues and reduce expenditure. Our assessment is that fiscal performance has been strong, and Ghana is on track to lower the fiscal primary deficit on a commitment basis by about 4 percentage points of GDP this year.
That's Stefan Rude, Mission Chief. Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, says the measures instituted under the program are yielding results and that the central bank will continue to tighten monetary policy. We can hear from him as well.
From the beginning of the year to date, the Bank of Ghana has built reserves of about $650 million instead of the programmed drawdown of $98 million. And this has been boosted by the innovative Gold for Reserves program. And as a result, we have seen relative stability in the exchange rate, depreciating by only 2.5% between February and now. It is therefore very important to sustain this strong performance and consolidate the gains we are seeing. Looking ahead, the Bank of Ghana will continue to maintain a tight monetary policy stance.
That's the governor of the central bank. He's also spoken about the measures which they've instituted, which has produced results and how focused they are. But let's hear from the finance minister. But I must mention that Professor John Gachi is an economist and the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School. He's joined us on the telephone line. Prof, I appreciate that you could join us this evening here on Hot Edition.
Okay.
Prof, I would maybe I should just move on and then I'll bring in the finance minister's position as well. Let me just start first off with the central bank governor says they've tightened monetary policy and that the cedi has depreciated by just some 2.5% this year. Also, in addition, he mentions some of the things which have happened, the gold for reserve policy, which he believes is helping the economy turn the corner. Is that really the case, considering the fact that we've suspended the payment of external debt as well, which some have argued is primarily responsible for why our cedi has not been depreciating?
Yeah, I think so. A combination of those factors play a significant role in the stability of the cedi in the eyes of the authorities. If you are now paying significant amount of external debt obligations, that has a cooling effect on the performance of the currency. So if we resume payment of these external obligations, the situation would definitely be a different story. And again, there have been some truncation and then reduction in the demand pressures along the line. Those factors also are actually contributed to the performance of the cedi. And that is only an indication that if we are minded to sustain the performance of the cedi in the long term, then we need to focus on those demand pressures to suppress them by ensuring that we reverse the demand trend, by ensuring that we produce some of the things that we are demanding outside, so that they become part of the domestic production, to be able to curtail and then provide a cushion for the cedi for a long term. And of course, we cannot jubilate over this so much, because if we have moved the cedi from 6 cedis to 11 cedis, 42 pesos, we should be working assiduously to drive it down, instead of glorifying ourselves about the stability around this high figure.
But can we really drive it down? I'm being really realistic here. Not for ever in my life, really, has there been a sustained period where we've seen the cedi gain value against the US dollar. Maybe last year when there was some relative stability and we were able to reduce it from the 16 cedis, which reached to about 8 cedis. But that was just for a short period, and then we saw the depreciation set in again.
Well, that is possible over a long period of time, given the right prescription of policy implementation. We can achieve that. We know that we are bedeviled with demand pressures that drive inflation in terms of even in terms of food items, and then the same demand pressure contribute to exchange rate. So I think what the Bank of Ghana should be thinking about right now is how to deepen its focus on economic development by focusing on providing intervention for the sectors that drive our demand in the areas that we have ability to increase production and sustain. That is a key requirement to focus on.
Right.
I believe that there should be a very strong relationship or coordination among the key economic sectors, including Ministry of Agri, Food and Agri, Ministry of Finance, and the Bank of Ghana, so that role that the Bank of Ghana has to play in terms of economic development will be felt by the economic sectors of the economy.
I mean, there's so many aspects of what the central bank governor said that I would love responses from you, but also in relation to the tightening of monetary policy and its relationship with inflation, which we've seen over the last few months as well. But there was a level of satisfaction from the IMF mission team as to the level of work that has been done. Is it really the case that perhaps we are really turning the corner after all?
I think that is a fact that if you look at the expression of the IMF team, they are satisfied about the records, but that satisfaction it meets their expectation in terms of what they expect the government to do. But that satisfaction does not change the prices in the market. That satisfaction does not change the environment within which the businesses are operating. That satisfaction does not actually change the demand for jobs across the country, and more especially within the sensitive demographic group in the country. So we still have a lot of work to do to ensure that the economy is managed to benefit the access of the economy. The economy must manage to benefit number one, the businesses. The economy must be managed to benefit households, and that reflection in the household, not what the IMF said for themselves. The IMF want to see inflation go down. IMF want to see the deficit goes down, and the rest. But when those things do not reflect to change the situation that is experienced by the businessman, that is experienced by the average person, we only shout at a distance, but we will not be proximate to the benefit that we ought to get.
And by this, it will mean that for the ordinary Ghanaian, even with this, what appears to be the staff level agreement again for another $600 million, expectations will have to be managed from the position of Ghanaians, because it is not the case that this new $600 million is going to readily or easily alleviate the current difficulties being experienced.
That is exactly so. And we know the direction of the disbursement of the $600 million. It's supposed to support balance of payment. It's supposed to support the budget somehow. So those are the expectations. But I do not think that the economic situation, as experienced by industry, as experienced by businesses, as experienced by individual households, will change. The challenges that institutions linked to the state are facing in terms of mobilizing funds to do what is expected of them, it's not going to change because of the $600 million. We have a lot of projects that are now put on hold, or even when they are being executed, they are being executed at snail pace. Those situations will not change. Employment situation will not change because of the $600 million. So those are the areas that people feel the economy. So the economy, per Article 36 of the Constitution, must be managed to provide outcomes that benefit the access, that's the people, and of course they have to be happy about it. So right now, nobody is happy about anything. That is what we need to work on seriously.
Right. I'll just perhaps end this conversation on the conditionalities. Yes, we may have reached staff level agreement, but like the first conditionality, which had to do a lot with domestic debt, this time around the focus is on external debt and how quickly it is that we can't restructure them. Considering, I won't want to call it a difficulty on the domestic front, what is your own reading as to how well government can be able to restructure these debts on the foreign front?
Well, I think it's also interesting to articulate that the IMF today indicated that, yes, they have agreed on domestic debt exchange, but the scope and nature of execution of that is a sovereign decision that the government has taken. The way it affected institutions in the country, affected individuals, and affected some businesses is a matter of sovereign decision by the government of Ghana. So that cannot be blamed on them. That is something that we need to take note of. But the point is, we do know that when we get an agreement on external debt restructuring or exchange program, that is more beneficial to us as a country. But it's very difficult to come by because you need to convince the external people, and we have been told that they are making headway. So we only wait to see whether those headway that they say they are making will actually crystallize into concrete debt exchange program for the IMF to see and proceed. But I do know that it's a difficult process. It's not as simple as the domestic debt exchange program that you can do a quasi-compulsory acceptance of the debt exchange program and the formula by institutions in the country for which government can use its coercive and pressure to one way or the other make people accept the debt exchange program, no matter how difficult it is to them, no matter how deeper it erodes
their gains and profits.
So I think some patience will have to be exercised to achieve external debt exchange program, because we cannot use the same approach that we use to achieve the domestic debt exchange program on the external front.
But considering that this government has been able to do a lot of things against the odds, would you be betting that we could be getting this, say, early November? Because for us reaching staff level agreement with the IMF is a record that's been set that's not been seen anywhere else in the world.
I think that staff level agreement and the entire program that we achieved, we got the first tranche. I believe it has some element built in it to support the government of Ghana not to sleep, not to be allowed to go through what other countries are going through, because they don't want to see some repercussion of that. So I believe that the approach to the IMF program for Ghana is a liberal approach by the IMF. But I believe now that the program is on board, the IMF is actually tightening small to see to it that the main indicators that will have to be followed is followed through to be able to get the tranche. So as we go along, I believe that we will be getting the full force of the IMF to ensure that we are able to comply with what they have said. But I believe that there is much more goodwill, that's much more accommodation by the IMF for Ghana.
Right then, Prof. I appreciate that you could speak to us this evening.
Thank you.
That's Professor John Gachi. He's an economist and the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, speaking to us this evening here on Hot Edition. His 2 cents on the situation. It's been good news largely from the International Monetary Fund. Government says that it's great news as well as we continue to work our way around the current difficulties. We've turned the corner and things are beginning to look a lot better now. But there's a need for restraint and the management of expectation. But we can now hear from the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, who says the government is aimed to present a proposed plan to official creditors next week. He's been outlining some of the conditionalities to be met for the release of the second tranche of the monies expected by the IMF.
The economy was very much in need of has been achieved. We said we have turned the corner. And the major economic indicators such as inflation, as Governor mentioned, the exchange rate continues to drop and stabilize. and there's confidence returning in the economy. I'm happy to confirm that Ghana has just completed its first review of the IMF program, as Stefan has announced. The first review, had key deliverables, including the 6 performance criteria, the 3 indicative targets, and the 3 structural benchmarks that were due at the end of June 2023. So you can imagine the work and the anxiety, the speed with which people have worked, even as we also try to manage demonstrations in the middle of that. But we are all good and we are in good order. So assessment of the progress at meeting program targets also due by end September 2023 and end December 2023, and discussions on the policy framework for 2024. So while we await the fund staff to present the full assessment of the targets, I think we are now in a very strong position to look ahead into the future and give all stakeholders the confidence that is needed to support the country.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta speaking there at that news conference earlier today. You're listening to Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. 27 minutes past the hour. This is Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta, and we're going on to some other pressing matters where even before the country deals with the shortage of consumables for renal treatment, another incident of short supply is rearing its ugly head as persons living with HIV and AIDS say they are unable to access their antiretroviral drugs. In a statement, the group revealed that the antiretroviral medicines which have arrived in Ghana in July are being held at the country's harbour, awaiting a tax waiver from the Finance Ministry. President of the Network of Persons Living with HIV, LCI, says they have been compelled to overdose on children's prescription.
At this point in time, it was 2 days ago when we got a call, and it was a very frantic call from our members at Kolebu Teaching Hospital who had gone for their medication, and they were usually we are given 3 months, 6 months. They were given 1 month, and that had been going on for some time. And when they got there now, they were out. The medication was out of stock. So that was where we realized that the medication that was at the stock at the harbour was still there. And at that point, there was nothing else we could do because, well, switching medications and all that, that was even, so that was at the point where we just didn't know what to do because we trusted that the system was working and that everything would be put in place so that between August and October, for goodness sake, that things will be the steps will be taken to ensure that the medications are cleared. But that didn't happen. And for us, that is very unacceptable, most unacceptable. Take our medication. Then we would be opening ourselves to getting resistance, building resistance to the medication when finally we have them. And we dare not stay off our medication. And once we build resistance, I don't know which other medication is there, to enable us continue having a good life. Once we are not on medication, we can start transmitting HIV. We can infect other people. Mothers, women who are pregnant would also infect the unborn child. We don't want that. We want to prevent new infections. We want to remain virally suppressed. We want to remain healthy and productive. We want to live our lives like anybody else. While we are playing our part, we assume that our partners also, because we're not doing this alone, all other partners who are together with us, helping us to, together as a country and aid by 2030 are also involved. And then we will all together work to ensure that we stay healthy, we take our medication. But here's the case where we don't have the medication.
That's the president of the network of persons living with HIV LCI. Well, the group is also alleging the antiretroviral medication, which has been bought with donor funds and at no cost to the country, should not attract taxes, but are being held until an AU tax, ECOWAS tax, and COVID-19 tax are paid before they can be accessed.
They all know that the medications are still at stock and hadn't been cleared. And what I got to know this morning is that the situation got to this level, but I don't think it's an excuse, because Parliament was on. If there has to be that tax waiver we are requesting, it should be done by Parliament. But they are on recess. But then there should be something that there should be an alternative. There should be, though they are on recess, there should be an open door for urgent matters such as this, so that those people are trusted to take the right decision and let things go on well. But I am surprised that it has. I mean, that's just, for me, it is just only that needs to be done. So what is preventing some from the select committee in Parliament to be called to look at this very urgent issue so that we could have our medication? I don't think we are all Ghanaians, and they are there for us, for our well-being. So now there seems to be a way, and I think somebody or those who are to take that step should take the step. And that is what we want you to push on our behalf also. That's what it would take for that action to be taken.
Certainly something that we're going to be pushing for, to get government to take some action. We're seeking to raise on the telephone lines Chairman Tiahini, Dr. Chairman Tiahini. He is the Commissioner of the AIDS Commission. He's joined us on the phone this evening, thankfully. Doc, many thanks for speaking to us this evening. A shortage of HIV medication and the requirement for taxes to be paid on medicines which have been out of the pot since July. Has this come to your attention?
Yes.
It's come to your attention?
Yes.
And in the immediacy, has there been anything, actions taken, letters written to the government, the finance ministry, who are demanding these taxes, explaining why perhaps the taxes should be waived off?
It has to be clarified that Parliament has granted tax waivers for all global funds donated commodities to Ghana. And so the taxes being alluded to do not apply in this particular case. Of course, there are two levies that apply, and those are ECOWAS levy and AU levy. Now, as a member state, Ghana does not have the mandate to waive those levies. It has to come from the regional body, that is ECOWAS and AU. And so the process is underway to, engage Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration to initiate the process of getting AU and ECOWAS to waive off taxes relating or levies relating to donated commodities. And so that is being worked on. But what is actually happening is the fact that besides the taxes, which we have waiver for, there are specific port-related charges that have to be paid. And so there are about 6 of such clearing charges that have to be paid at the port. And when those ones are not paid, then it becomes difficult to, release or clear the consignment from the port. And that has been the challenge. And therefore, it is something that is not supposed to happen, because we always know when the shipment, is done. So before the commodities are even put on the sea, we get the information and we know when they will arrive. And so the process of making funds available to pay the port charges should be made. But the challenge is that funding is a problem.
Right.
And therefore, we are not able to, pay on time. The commodities go into demurrage with this attendant demurrage charges, which increases the bill at the port.
So if I understand you, Doc, the commission is expected to pay these charges at the ports, but there's an issue with finances. The reason I ask this is because consistently we've been told that under this administration, allocations have been increased to institutions like yourself. Is it a challenge of disbursement to your account to oversee some of these administrative issues?
I'll put it this way. Ghana's commission is not responsible for the importation and clearing of these commodities. It is the Ministry of Health.
So the Ministry of Health is what is failing?
Yes, the Ministry of Health is responsible for the importation and clearing. But the money meant for the clearing is actually held by the Ghana Health Service. It is Ghana Health Service that releases the money for the clearing. And so the ministry has a clearing agent, and I understand that the Ghana Health Service has made some payment to the clearing agent to have the containers that are held up at the port to be released. And it is my hope that the Ghana Health Service would prioritize the release of the HIV commodities so that we can get them, moved into the health facilities to fill the gaps that we currently have. But on specific question of funding, yes, Ghana is, hello?
Doc, I'm listening. I wanted to make an intervention, but I was just hoping you just finished.
Ghana is having a huge funding gap when it comes to the HIV program. Currently, we have only about 33% of the money we need for the HIV program in a year. And so we have a huge funding gap. And therefore, it is important that we find a way of getting this huge funding gap, addressed. And as I always say, government has its role, but government cannot do it alone because the amount of money involved is huge. We need about, the funding gap for each year is about $89 million. And government may not be able to, make that available. That is why the commission is embarking on active resource mobilization, asking Ghanaians and corporate Ghana to contribute to the aid fund.
Right.
And we have the short code, which is star 9898 hash, that people could use to donate.
Openly
so
contribute.
That we can get money to meet all these costs.
Star 9898 hash, that's it?
Yes, that is the short code.
Right.
And you follow the prompt
and then you
do
can
the donation.
you can donate. Doc, I appreciate that you could speak to us. Star 9898 hash is the short code that the Commissioner of the AIDS Commission, Dr. Treme Tuahene, says that you listening to us can donate a small quota to be able to contribute. Doc, I'll leave it here. I'm sure this is a conversation that I will definitely come to you on, hoping that these drugs would have been cleared from the port for us. I appreciate your time for speaking to us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's Dr. Treme Tuahene. Let's go on the other telephone line. Kwabnaminta Kando is a ranking member on the Health Committee of Parliament. He's joined us on the telephone line as well. Mr. Kando, many thanks. And so what? Just some few days ago, I was speaking to you on the streets about renal dialysis and what course of action you were going to take. And then today we're hearing that there's a shortage of AIDS vaccines, antiretroviral drugs for AIDS patients. How are we getting here as a country? In within the space of a week, different conversations and very important conversations in terms of healthcare as well.
This is what you get if you have an irresponsible government in your jurisdiction. I don't know how this government sees the health sector, but sometimes it is, quite disheartening to say the least, that government has deliberately decided to push people into their early grave. And almost all the issues government is toying with are very, very, very sensitive and crucial to the survival of the citizens in the country. It is quite unconscionable, in fact, gross dereliction of duty, that you have another country, donor funding, a donor partner, bringing you drugs for free, HIV antiretroviral drugs for free. You aren't paying anything. It gets to your port, the beneficiary country's port, and then they say there are taxes, and therefore the consignment has been at the port since July and has created needless strategies in the system for citizens to suffer. Apart from government, this can never happen in any part of the world. It cannot happen. It doesn't make sense. And the challenges in the HIV/AIDS sector is there than even just this one. I can tell you on authority, and I sit on the committee, that as I speak to you now, I'll be so much surprised if it goes to the AIDS Commission and they even have lights in their office. I heard a bit, the last portion of Mr. Tuahene's, appeal to the public.
Yeah.
But you see, I am not in any way discouraging people from contributing, but at least government must show commitment. In 2019, before even COVID and the so-called Ukraine-Russia war, we lost more than $21 million just because we couldn't pay our counterpart funding. We lost $19 million to PEPFAR, the U.S. President's emergency plan for HIV, release. And then we lost about $2 million to Global Fund, just because we're supposed to show just a commitment so that they give us this money. And look, I am telling you that if you are not very careful, very early next year, in fact, probably in January, we are going to lose about $13 million. People, they are bringing us this money for free. Just show commitment and take the money. These are big money that can contribute to, significantly to have positive impact.
And what are the challenges in having us show commitment? Because, like you're saying, this is free money.
For example, we are bringing you 19 million. So pay, let's say, $4 million to show the commitment. And government says, I don't have it. Okay, if you don't have it, then we are not bringing it. We are bringing you $2 million. Okay, come and pay, let's say, $10 million and take it to 2. Government says, I don't have the money. And therefore, we lose those money. Who does this?
Right. So, Mr. Kando, I reckon once this is coming to your attention, there should be urgent action taken by the committee on this as well? Is there that assurance that individuals are going to be brought before you to answer questions?
Yes, we'll continue to do our best. I hope you have cited our press release. You have, right?
Yes, my attention has been drawn to it by production as well in relation to that.
Fantastic. So we've done a press release. We have asked government to, as a matter of urgency, clear those consignments at the port. Then we'll take it from there. And we'll follow it to the latter. So please, the health sector is a very crucial sector. And we must all begin to throw light to follow whatever goes on there.
Mr. Kando, as always, I appreciate your thoughts on this particular subject matter. Governor Kando is a ranking member on the Health Committee of Parliament speaking to us this evening. We're just going to follow up with the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, who are urging government to maintain a high-quality vaccine program as the country aims to self-finance vaccine procurement from 2029. My colleague Christian Yali was there and he reports.
A progressively larger share of co-financing for vaccines. And that means that here
in 2022 and early 2023, Ghana's immunization drive was hindered by a shortage of essential vaccines due to outbreaks of COVID-19, measles, and anthrax, exposing gaps in universal health coverage. Experts are advocating for a comprehensive roadmap that aligns with global standards as Ghana aims to self-finance vaccine procurement.
When Ghana finally starts fully financing its vaccines, there will be an increase in cost of maintaining such a high-quality program and maintaining that coverage. How does Ghana begin to optimize its vaccine portfolio so that it is more affordable? Secondly, how does Ghana think through co-financing over the next couple of years so that financing of vaccines is not just provided, but is also provided in a timely manner so that we can avoid things like stockouts or shortages of vaccines in places where we need them the most.
He emphasized the need for a transparent procurement system and accountability for resources in the country.
That means setting out a roadmap that is not just a plan, but one where we are all bought into.
My colleague Christian Yali with that report, bringing us to business at 23 minutes, 13 minutes to the top of the hour. Michael Ogbodu is here ready and waiting with the very latest from the world of business right after this.
Well, hello there and welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Michael Obodu. Now, coming up, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, is optimistic Ghana will receive $800 million out of the proposed $1.13 billion cocoa syndicated loan. This and many more coming up shortly. Well, let's head straight into our first story now. As the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, is optimistic Ghana will receive $800 million out of the proposed $1.13 billion cocoa syndicated loan. Cocoa Board agreed on a $1.13 billion syndicated loan to fund its cocoa purchases for the 2022-2023 cocoa season, which began on October 7.
And just a little clarification on the Cocoa Board issue. I think that they are still getting the syndication this year. It's just that the size of the syndication is going down from, I think, 1.2 to 800 million. That's it.
So that was the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison. Meanwhile, the governor also says he expects inflation to ease considerably to allow for a favorable lending rate.
I think the important thing to note is that we're happy with the direction of inflation, and we are looking at staying on that path. And depending on the developments, we'll take the appropriate decision. I mean, if it happens that inflation falls much faster, right? If it falls much faster than expected, then you could obviously expect that the monetary policy rate could go down. On the other hand, if it doesn't, it could also go up. So it's very, dependent on the developments in the data.
That was Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison. Now, the Director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, Professor Peter Quartey, has stated that the anticipated second tranche of the IMF bailout fund is expected to contribute to a more stable economy. He further mentioned that the expected inflows would assist the government in carrying out essential expenditures. This statement follows Ghana's achievement of a staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund for the first assessment, which is part of anticipated second tranche bailout package.
Well, I think we've met the triggers, we've met the targets, and that is not surprising to me because if you look at some of the key targets, getting our revenue handles right, new tax instruments that were passed, that has been done, as well as increasing revenue, also ensuring that our fiscal is within acceptable limits. And all of this points towards that direction. Exchange rate has been relatively stable. Inflation is high, but it's coming down. And even in growth, in terms of our growth numbers, the end of year target was below 2%. We've seen first quarter, second quarter growth around 3%. And we know that granted that nothing unforeseen happens, we normally grow better in the third and last quarter. So granted that we grow at 3%, then we are likely to grow around 3 to 3.5%. So yes, for me, it's a good signal. Some inflows will come in, $600 will come in. That will help stabilize the exchange rate. Government will have some money as well to engage in some of the activities it's had planned to undertake.
Well, so that was Professor Peter Quartey, the Director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, bringing an end to the business edition here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. My name is Michael Obodu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next is sports.
Well, it's time for sports here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Lishen, and let's start off from African football, where Medeama SC have been drawn in Group D of the CAF Champions League. They will be facing Al Ahly FC of Egypt, CR Belouizdad of Algeria, and Young Africans of Tanzania in that group. Now, African football journalist Lawrence Kula believes that Medeama will struggle to make it out of that group.
You can never rule any team out, but it doesn't look good to them, honestly. Al Ahly, for obvious reasons. Look, they're not always like super dominant in the group stages, but I think they'll want to rectify that this season and, put their stamp their marker on it. Belouizdad have been flying towards the knockout stages over maybe the past 2-3 seasons, and I think they're with Sundowns as well. They're always in a difficult group. So yeah, they much like Sundowns dominating the domestic league, and it's more of a win rather than how can I say, if they'll win the Champions League, much like Sundowns. And then Young Africans, they might have a coaching change with Nabi leaving, Kamondi coming in, but looks like they're flying as well.
That was Lawrence Kula. Now, he, however, believes that Dreams FC have a chance of making it out of their group in the CAF Confederation Cup. Now, Dreams FC are in Group C with Rivers United of Nigeria, Club Africain of Tunisia, and APC Lobito of Angola. All right, let's move on to some fixtures in the Ghana Premier League now. Now, Adriana FC managed to beat Berekum Chelsea by a goal to nil earlier today. Now, here are the other fixtures in the Ghana Premier League heading to this weekend. We have Bechem United facing Mediama SC. Also, Hartlefolk will be facing Dreams FC. Nations FC will be facing Legon Cities. Karela United will be facing Great Olympics, and Swatreman will be facing FC Samatex. BBN Gold Stars will be facing Real Tamale United. Hearts of Lions will be facing Bofo Kwatano. And on Monday, Accra Lions will be playing against Asante Kotoko. That will be the big fixture for this particular weekend in the Ghana Premier League. Now, former Barcelona forward Kevin Prince Boateng has revealed that he was kicked out of the Black Stars camp during the 2014 World Cup following his complaints to the GFA about the treatment of players. He made 15 appearances for the Black Stars and scored 2 goals during his time there.
Spoke with the president about payments and organization, so I criticized them.
Publicly?
No, in front of them.
Okay.
Like, we had a meeting and I criticized them and I said they can't treat us like that because we know how much money they make and they should invest in the organization and give the player the money they deserve. So they didn't like that. They kicked me out.
Sometimes when you speak the truth, huh?
Yeah, it's like, and they put a letter under my door.
Oh.
I took the letter and, no, you know what? It was 6 a.m. at the World Cup 2014 in Brazil. They kicked me out.
No.
They kicked him out. That was Kevin Prince Boateng, former Barcelona forward. Now, before I do go, Juventus midfielder Paul Pogba's field drugs test has been confirmed after his B sample tested positive. Pogba, who is 30 years of age, was provisionally suspended last month after his initial sample found elevated levels of testosterone in his system. The France international was selected for random testing after Juve's 3-0 win at Udinese on 20th of August when he had been an unused substitute. If found guilty of doping, he could be banned for between 2 and 4 years. That brings an end to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Billy Shen, and up next is entertainment with Akofa standing by.
Thank you very much, Bill, for that. It's now time for the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition. Let's begin with rapper Medical. Now, the Stubborn Academy crooner has a new track out titled Balenciaga featuring renowned Nigerian singer Mayo Kuna. The track is part of Medical's highly anticipated album Planning and Plotting, a 14-track masterpiece that showcases a fusion of diverse musical talents from across the continent. The track effortlessly bridges the gap between Nigeria and Ghana, two powerhouses in the African music scene, showcasing the shared cultural and musical heritage that unites these nations. Now let's turn our attention to Black Sheriff. It's been a year since Black Sheriff launched his much anticipated debut album, The Villain I Never Was, which has amassed over 1 billion audio streams across the digital streaming divide. The 21-year-old announced he was ready for war with the first single off the album, Soldier. Black Sheriff went above and beyond by pouring all his perceived virtues into the project. It embodies all he stands for: originality, honesty, hope, pain, attention to detail, and so much more. The album enjoyed several laurels, including placing 49 on Fader's top 50 global albums for 2022, earning him the Best International Flow Act at the BET Hip Hop Awards 2023, Artist of the Year, the 25th Ghana Music Awards, and the Best West African Act at the Headies Awards, among others. Now to my final story and onto the international scene. U.S. star Jason Derulo has been accused of sexual harassment in a legal case launched by a singer who was signed to his record label. Imaza Gibson, who was offered a recording contract with Derulo's imprint, is now suing him, alleging he ended their working relationship after she denied his sexual advances. Derulo has denied the claims, calling them completely false and hurtful. In a statement posted to his Instagram account, Derulo Murillo said, "I stand against all forms of harassment and remain committed to supporting people chasing their dreams." He added, "I strive to live my life in a positively impacting way, so I am deeply offended by these defamatory allegations." Ms. Gibson, whose contract with Atlantic Records was terminated in September 2022, is seeking to claim unpaid wages, loss of earnings, and deferred compensation, as well as further damages for emotional distress and employment benefits. Well, thanks for listening. The entertainment news segment is powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa.
Right then, Akofa, many thanks for the very latest from the world of entertainment. Interesting, we'll swap seats.
Yes,
for you
we
to do this one.
Yeah.
But that's our bulletin for you, which came to you from our studio here on the John Hammond Street. But interesting, this sexual harassment that continues to bug all of these stars, man, it makes for really, really scary. Really scary for us as men. But anyways, Akofa, many thanks. That's our bulletin. Like I mentioned, as always, a lot more news if you log on to 3news.com. I am Mawuena Egbeta. Enjoy the weekend.